Beef is nothing new in the hip-hop scene. However, what happens when a long-standing rivalry goes beyond poetic insults to personal destruction? T and 50 Cent have been dancing for years, amid a chilly conflict between egos. However, the temperature has barely reached the boiling point. After a slew of mysterious burnt grass posts from the T.I.'s wife, Tamika Tiny Harris's private footage is allegedly compromised by gun-it mogul 50 Cent. This isn't just another leak, though. This deliberate attack targets the core of the Grand Hustle empire. Social media headlines that screamed, "My wife is a hooker," weren't just fan theories. These were the purported words reverberating through the virtual hallways of this explosive conflict. The Harris household was utterly silent as the video went viral. Supporters held their breath, waiting for the Southern King to either recover his throne or disintegrate under the pressure of the public. Embarrassment. At last, he broke his quiet, in an unvarnished reaction that has rocked the industry. Tip didn't just talk about the video. He talked about betrayal, misogyny, and the dark side of a brotherhood that betrays itself for the sake of a viral moment. Is this the conclusion of a AA masterclass in PR damage control or a famous marriage? Or we're dissecting this Hollywood horror tale tonight. We are examining the Tip 50 frictions, past, and the veracity of the leaked substance, as well as the catastrophic consequences of a conflict in which nothing is beyond limits. Even the lady you love doesn't buckle up. This isn't merely rumors. It's a struggle for reputation, family, and Atlanta royalty's very essence. There are several great rivalries throughout hip-hop's history. However, the collision between King of Atlanta of the South T and 50 Cent, the ultimate disruptor of New York, has reached a breaking point. These days, it's more than just a fight over lyrics or chart spots. It has developed into a scorched earth campaign that violates both the dignity of marriage and the sanctity of the home. When 50 Cent abruptly shared a video on his enormous social media platforms, supposedly portraying Tamika Tiny Harris, T's wife, for a brief while, the digital world came to a halt in a compromising and very private light. This wasn't just another small-minded jab at a lengthy queue of disparaging remarks. It was a deliberate attack on Tip's masculinity and the cornerstone of the Harris family's heritage. Curtis Jackson, well known by his stage as 50 Cent, has made a profession out of psychological warfare. However, many saw this action as a low blow that went against every unspoken cultural norm. Questions erupted on the internet right away. Was this video real, or was it a result of deepfake technology and contemporary AI utilized to defeat an adversary? Regardless of where it came from, the content's graphic nature and the disparaging labels connected to it caused a firestorm that T was unable to ignore. We must examine the simmering tension that has characterized the relationship between these two icons for years in order to comprehend how we got to this boiling point. It started during the Verzu era, when T openly challenged 50 Cent to a Hits for Hitsbot challenge, which 50 rebuffed with typical haughtiness, saying Tip lacked the catalog to compete with him. From then on, there was a digital Cold War declared. 50 Cent's go-to tactic has always been mocking. He uses his troll persona to highlight the shortcomings of his competitors, from their style preferences to their legal issues. But putting Tiny Harris at the center of this conflict changed the dynamic from one of amusement to one of personal retaliation. As a Grammy-winning musician and member of Escape, Tiny has been a force in the music industry for decades. Husband through all the hardships of when her name was associated with and dragged through the dirt with the label hooker, it converted a professional rivalry into a struggle for survival. Harris family? Social media turned into a polarized war as the video went viral. One group made fun of 50 Cent's constant petty behavior. On the other hand, the opposing side voiced sincere anger, claiming that attacking a man's wife is a cowardly act that goes against both the industry's and the street's code. The main query was still, was the video authentic? 50 Cent implied that T had no control over his own house by claiming to have receipts that would reveal a secret aspect of Tiny's life. This was a psychological ploy meant to degrade Tip on a worldwide scale. The leak and the ensuing aftermath were the only topics of discussion. Music from the streets of Atlanta to the high-rise offices of Hollywood. T, typically the first to provide a lengthy, long vocabulary-heavy talk about social topics. And for the first several hours, there was an unsettling lack of music. Many thought that the king had finally been checkmated due of the deafening quiet, was possibly coping with a domestic catastrophe in private. Because of their reality show, The Family Hustle, the intricacy of T and Tiny's relationship has always been discussed in public, mostly through song. They portrayed themselves as a cohesive, unbreakable front. However, over the years, they have experienced their fair share of public scandals. 50 Cent, a musician skilled at identifying the weakest link in a chain, took advantage of these weaknesses. He wasn't merely a video leaker. By framing a woman who has been Tip's rock for more than 20 years, he revived past scars and asked the public to judge her. The story revolved around the notion that Tiny was leading a double life. 50 was questioning T.I.'s whole identity as a protector, and music, a leader caption instructed Tip to tidy his home before pursuing the Junit boss. Was a dagger designed to deprive T of his place in the hip-hop hierarchy? Being the target of such visceral public humiliation was an embarrassment for a man who exudes the regality of Southern royalty. Unparalleled crisis. The Harris family's supporters immediately launched an onslaught, drawing attention to 50 Cent's habit of using women as collateral damage in his conflicts. They mentioned his previous strategies with Rick Ross and Floyd Mayweather, in which he often targeted their ex-partners to obtain a psychological advantage. However, the music in this instance was different because Tiny and TI-8 are still very much a pair, making the assault seem more like a real-time attempt to destroy a marriage. Tiny herself shared mysterious comments on her Instagram story while the memes and jokes swamped the page, avoiding a direct conflict while indicating that she was conscious of the storm. For T, this was a moment of truth. He had to choose whether to use gutter techniques at the level of the 1950s, or find a way to recapture his story without losing his self-respect. However, as song progressed, 50 Cent doubled down, using more disparaging words and promised even more proof. The diplomatic era was over. The world anticipated that T would respond with a diss tune or possibly uncover old information about 50's complex family relations. However, what followed was a change from the usual rap beef script. Instead of yelling, T broke his quiet with a deliberate, solemn intensity that seemed more perilous than a loud eruption. His face appeared on a live feed, etched with a mixture of exhaustion and determination, and started talking about the big issue in the room. He discussed the distinction between guys who resolve conflicts amicably and those who conceal their disagreements behind families are attacked by screens too. He continued to moralize. Nevertheless, he started to undermine the veracity of the video itself, raising the possibility of a far bigger plot involving irate former associates and the lengths. A viral moment is what some will pursue. The causes of this disastrous leak and the immediate havoc it caused were examined in Part 1. The stage is now prepared for the real conflict where the video's reality starts to come to light, and the personal and legal repercussions begin to materialize. As Tip started to reveal what he called a well-planned character assassination, he wasn't merely standing up for his spouse. He was questioning the fundamental principles of a society that glorifies destroying a black woman's name in order to amusement. The tension in this story moves from the leak itself to the shocking revelations as we enter the following stage. During his reaction, T revealed information that would compel even 50 Cent's most devoted fans to wonder if the Troll King had finally overreached himself. The distinctions between truth, falsehoods, and digital manipulation were about to become even more hazy as the aftermath was just getting started. Since in contrast to the typical bravado associated with rap feuds, the atmosphere during T's live broadcast was heavy with a tension that felt personal as the Harris family prepared for the fight of their life, since the King of the South didn't begin with insults, as thousands of watchers saw the numbers rise into the hundreds of thousands in a matter of minutes. He began with a deep sigh that conveyed the gravity of the issue. He started by talking about the particular language that 50 Cent utilized, especially the hooker label, which had turned into the focal point of the internet's mocking. T.I. maintained that the application of such in addition to being an assault on Tiny, the disparaging epithet used against a woman who had been a pillar of the Nudian and a loving mother was a representation of a deeper, more nefarious misogyny within the business. He changed the story from one of scandal about a video to a conversation about black women's protection, an action that started to influence the public's emotional reaction right away. 50 Cent was acting as the prosecutor in the courtroom. Tip was acting as the virtuous guardian, and he did it with a language that reaffirmed his status as one of hip-hop's most eloquent voices. However, the sentimental defense was just the start. T was aware that words by themselves would not be sufficient to halt the hemorrhage in the era of digital skepticism. He started talking about the technical elements of the leaked video that 50 Cent had been promoting online. Tip implied that the video was not what it appeared to be with a cool, almost surgical accuracy. He discussed the emergence of deepfake these days. People employ technology and dark websites to produce fake material that is intended to ruin people's reputations. At first, he didn't explicitly state that it was a fake, but he sowed the seeds of doubt by asking his audience to take a hard look at the clip's inconsistent lighting, shadows, and audio sync. The audience became investigators as a result of this clever tactical music move, which diverted their attention from the sensationalism of the music and substance, leading people to doubt the provenance. He noted that 50 Cent has a track record of being a digital puppet music master and implied that this most recent move was a last-ditch effort to create a fictitious catastrophe in order to remain relevant. The private video music itself came into sight as the broadcast went on. T.I. discussed the fact that even if there were truthful portions in the video, but the context music was being intentionally removed. In the realm of celebrity marriages, he reminded everyone that he and Tiny have been together for more than 20 years. They have endured public controversies involving music, federal prison sentences, and ongoing camera pressure. Every couple has a private life, he contended, and the attempt to weaponize it, the street code, which 50 Cent frequently says he upholds, was broken by privacy music. The audience did not miss the irony. Here was 50 Cent, a man whose career was founded on gangster authenticity, behaving as if music were a tabloid reporter. T capitalized on this irony by accusing music of being a rat in digital clothes, implying that disclosing intimate family moments is the best way to spy on someone's private life is through music. This live response had immediate repercussions. The hashtag Team Tiny began to trend with the more derogatory tags within an hour. People started to perceive the event as a terrible invasion of privacy rather than a gotcha moment. But the drama was far from finished. 50 Cent's music was never successful, responded almost immediately with more posts in order to give someone else the final say. He refused to give up. Rather, he became even more adamant, asserting music that T's grandiose remarks were really a front for the reality. He started sharing old pictures and purported texts that he said were connected to the source of the film. The exchange turned into a masterclass in contemporary psychological warfare. In order to keep the hooker story alive in the public's consciousness, 50 Cent was pulling the subject back down into the muck while T was attempting to raise it to ethics, music, and family. The industry became divided as a result. Some musicians offered tips in solidarity, while others remained silent out of fear that they would be 50 Cent's next target. According to reports, things were far worse inside the Harris home, more powerful than the music that was captured on camera. According to people close to the family, there was a major rift as a result of the music leak, not because of the video's content, but due to the sheer weariness of having to defend their dignity yet more. The quietest one has always been Tiny. The particular incident was reported to have devastated half of the power couple. Characteristics of the assaults: being reduced to a clickbait headline by her husband's competitor was an ex-prize public defense, which was as much for her as it was for a woman music who had spent her life creating a brand and raising a family. Was for his own standing? The most of his reply was devoted to discussing the power music of a queen, attempting to restore the reputation that 50 Cent had so viciously attempted to speaking about their private discussions behind closed doors. He asserted that their relationship was indestructible and that no amount of digital trickery could alter the truth of their love. When legal threats started to surface in the music industry, the situation became more complicated. I stated that his legal team was already tracking the original music's metadata upload, seeking to demonstrate that the video was disseminated maliciously and may have been acquired illegally. As a result, the conflict shifted from being a social media quarrel to a possible criminal case. Distributing non-consensual private images is a major crime in several jurisdictions. Additionally, Music Tip demonstrated that he was prepared to use whatever legal means possible to hold those music accountable by bringing in the danger posed by the federal government and expensive solicitors. 50 Cent was receiving a signal from T that the games were ended. He was no longer only vying for Instagram likes. In a sense, he was battling for justice. That might have real-world repercussions. As we wrap up this second section of the story, everyone participating in the leak has a good understanding of the battle music lines. 50 Cent, the unrelenting provocateur, is on one side, who thinks that in a conflict, anything music is fair game. Conversely, T.I., the troubled monarch, is attempting to defend his throne and his family music against a side. The audience is left in a difficult position, having to choose between the drama's entertainment value and the moral ramifications of the way music is being performed. The issue of whether the video is a skewed version of reality or a complete fabrication, the emphasis has changed. but the music is still in the air. What was on the video is no longer the only thing that matters. It has to do with the men's personalities. As T concluded his first reply, music, and departed the earth with a terrifying vow, the truth will land with a heavy hand, but it doesn't need a loud voice to be heard. This music prepared the audience for the last act of this tale, where the true source of the leak would be exposed and the rivalry's ultimate cost would be paid. The digital dust, or music, started to settle. However, the quiet that was considerably more frightening than the initial explosion and came after T.I.'s legal threats. A new and darker aspect of the story started to surface, as everyone waited for the next move in this high-stakes music chess battle. It was about a betrayal of trust from within the inner circle, not merely a battle between music to rap titans. Investigations, music into the leak's origin began to diverge from 50 Music Cent as the originator and in the direction of a person who is closer to the Harris family. There were rumors that the video was taken from a cloud account or a backup device that a former worker, someone who had been entrusted with the Kingdom's Keys music. This insight completely altered the tone of T's rage. It was no longer merely an exterior conflict, it was treachery in domestic music. The Southern King was engaged in combat on two fronts, one in Atlanta against a snake in his own grass, and another in New York against a public enemy. T-Music, when I went back on the radio, the tone was altered. There was more street-level intensity and less vocabulary. He spoke to the inner man about music, implying that the ultimate evil had been committed by the individual who gave that video to the gun camp music. He discussed the sacredness of music, the camp, and how people frequently ruin it in the name of a fast paycheck or a fleeting moment of music fame, the hands that really feed them. This change in perspective began to portray 50 Cent as a scavenger who only took advantage of a chance presented to him by a traitor rather than as the mastermind. T was able to refocus the public's attention by drawing attention to the treachery. The public started to view the Harris family as the victims of a plot rather than Tiny as the victim of a scandal. This was a masterclass in managing one's reputation, transforming an incident that may have ended a marriage into a call to loyalty and defense. In the meanwhile, unlawful the speed of the machines was like lightning. For the first time during the entire process, T.I.'s lawyers filed multiple cease and desist orders. Regarding the Harris family, 50 Cent's social media feed became silent. The Troll King's arrogance appeared to run into a wall of icy, harsh legal truth. Under the increasingly stringent regulations pertaining to revenge porn and non-consensual imagery, all of a sudden, 50 Cent was on very thin ice. The hooker accusations, entertainment value started to diminish when the prospect of significant civil lawsuits and criminal investigations became the main headline. Tiny Harris was finally able to enter the spotlight during this peaceful time. Neither a lengthy message nor an emotional video were released by her. Rather, she shared a number of pictures of her with her husband and kids with a straightforward comment about unshakable bonds. More forceful than any caption from the 1950s, there was a quiet act of rebellion. The